What's up, model makers? It's kind of a slow and obviously scruffy day over here at Rube Goldberg Enterprises, but I felt like making a quick video because I don't feel like doing much else today. So how about a quick review? I just spent some time this weekend doing my first really serious work with Mr. Paint. That stuff right there, if the camera would focus. And so I thought I would talk about it specifically because I was using the metallics. So let's take a look. Okay, so let's take a look at what I've used from the Mr. Paint lineup and what I've done. My specific project was to paint the exhausts from the Tamiya 1/12 Repsol Honda MotoGP motorcycle kit, and that's what I've got right here. Now, these pipes are a lot of fun because in real life they are welded cone pipes, and what that means is basically that instead of a continuous length of tubing that's been bent and formed to shape, that at least in certain sections they take sheets of material and roll them into tubular sections and cut them into angled chunks and then weld them together. It's how most of the factory and prototype racing pipes are made for motorcycle racing. So anyway, you get this really cool effect where you've got all these welded seams, and because it's titanium, you get a lot of heat staining when the welding takes place. And then as the pipes get used and aged with heat, the staining becomes even more colorful. So lots of fun to try and recreate that effect. And I'm not going to claim that this is perfect, but I studied my reference photographs a lot, and I feel like they came out pretty good. And in part because of the excellent selection of metallics from Mr. Paint. What I did is I started with the titanium, and that's a pretty good approximation of how the raw titanium looks before it gets any staining. It just, for you guys that are nerdy about materials like me, most of the titanium that's used in structural stuff is what's called 6Al4V titanium, which means that it's 6% aluminum and 4% vanadium in the alloy. So there you go. It's got a kind of a brownish, grayish color to it. And as soon as it starts to get warm, it turns even more brown. So I then put on some of this pale burnt metal in a few sections. And then as it progresses to the concentrations of highest heat, you go through this kind of a violet stage, and then you get to the really pretty blue. And sometimes you'll see it where it's more of a greenish turquoise blue as well. What it really depends on is the specific alloys, the specific heat conditions, the way that the pieces were fabricated. There's a lot of variables, and because they go through stages as they heat age, you really can't be wrong. I mean, these pipes could have been completely nothing but titanium, and it would have been right. It just wouldn't have been as interesting and fun. So anyway, I chose to use this Izu skinny washi masking tape that is also super cool to do all the masking. I mean, this stuff, one of my favorite new things because it's just so handy. But as you can see, lots and lots of masking to try and recreate the weld beads all around that curved section. I purposely chose not to count them before I did it because that would definitely have scared me off. But at least Tamiya does a good job, you can see there, of giving you mold lines on each section, so you at least have a pretty good idea of where to put the tape. So anyway, there's a pretty close look at that, and you can decide for yourself what you think of the results. You'll notice that the tip is of the cone is a little bit darker. I made a mix of the violet and the pale burnt metal and some black to create a slightly darker shade for that. And then I came back and sprayed a layer of semi-gloss lacquer over the whole thing, which frankly I just mixed up with Tester's dull coat, mixed 50-50 with Tester's gloss clear lacquer, and then diluted 50-50 that mix with Mr. Leveling Thinner. So, and that was after I did a little bit of washing and so forth with some Tamiya Panaline washes to do things like filling in the ends of the screen. So anyway, that's the result. The big question I think people are going to ask is, how does this stuff compare to the old standby all-clad? And the bottom line for me is pretty favorably. I certainly don't think that all-clad is any better. But there are a couple of things that I do really like about the Mr. Paint. One thing is, I've got this bottle of all-clad that I'm shaking up, and I've shaken it pretty hard, and you don't know I'm shaking it because you can't hear it, because there's no mixing ball in it. And with all that pigment that gets concentrated at the bottom of these metallics, that's a really nice feature. So, while I do have a supply of mixing balls in my drawer that I can add, it's really nice that Mr. Paint comes with the ball already in it. And I found that they mixed up really well. Now, some people say that the pigment is finer in the Mr. Paint, and that may be true. You couldn't really prove it by me. I haven't measured it. I don't know. Haven't examined it under a microscope. It kind of looks like in the bottle that might be true. All I can say is that the Mr. Paint stuff worked beautifully. And especially with sort of the negative history that I've had with all-clad lately, I don't have any reason giving these guys my money instead. So, it's just another tool for you to check out if you are interested in painting some metallic colors. I think that their ever-expanding list of shades is already equal to all-clad, if not already surpassing them. And the nice thing is that they have every other color under the sun, too. I think they're up to something like 260 or 70 colors now. And they're doing a pretty good job of matching all of the various military shades that you find out there. So, Mr. Paint, good stuff. Check it out. Okay, so there you go. I think you have to agree this stuff is pretty interesting, and at least based on the results, that it's another good tool for your paint arsenal. I should be clear, it is a lacquer. Their new bottles have the label on them that says acrylic lacquer, which is a little bit confusing because they throw the word acrylic in there. The truth is that most modern lacquers have an acrylic resin base. So it's true, it's correct, it's an acrylic lacquer. It's just kind of confusing. But it is a lacquer. You can clean it up with lacquer or cellulose thinners, as some people call them. But it does not need any thinning to spray. It comes out of the bottle plenty thin enough to work with, so no reason to worry there. We're also very lucky, if you live in the United States, to have a good supplier for this stuff. You can contact Matt Bull over at Hobby World USA, and he can hook you up with all of the Mr. Paint that you could possibly want. So check him out. All right, guys. As always, I appreciate you watching. Thanks again, and much love.